What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Hey, my mic is a little messed up here. You guys can hear me and see me and everything. All right, just let me know in the chat, and let me know. You guys have been letting me know where you're coming from, where you're watching from. So let me know where you guys are watching from, and we are going to get started with the show momentarily. And I'm loving the fact that I can pull up the chat now. For whatever reason, I was struggling with that before, but now I think I have it dialed in, so it looks like it's working the way it should be working. So I'm going to continue to do that to show the chat. So make sure you guys are, saying things in the chat, asking questions, making comments, things like that, and we'll add those into the show. Now, I want to talk about two things today, but then I'm going to open it up to you guys. So if you guys want to talk about certain stories, there's just so much stuff going on right now. I think maybe I'll just start off with some of the stuff that's going on, and maybe you guys want to talk about that in more detail. But the two main stories, I want to talk about Trump's response. So if you guys didn't catch it, a couple of days ago, Trump was on CNBC. He was asked a question about Social Security, and basically, well, I only say basically, he's open to cuts to Social Security. Now, I know he kind of, the thing with former President Trump is you could never get, well, politicians in general. Okay, this is politicians; they're really good at this, and I don't. You might not think former President Trump is a politician, but he is a true politician because they never really answer the question. They'll kind of skirt around it, and then they'll jump off into some different things. And so that's what he did. And I'll play the clip for you guys so you can hear it. I did a video a couple of days ago, and I talked about it. But basically, what he was saying was, the question was, when it comes to Social Security and Medicare, these two programs, this is non-discretionary funding, so it's mandatory spending. So we have to spend on those programs because that money is coming through a different funnel. And I just did a video, either it was yesterday or the day before. I'm getting the videos mixed up. I do so many videos, but I talked about the fact that that funnel is only for Social Security. Okay. And then Medicare, their funnel is only for Medicare. So Congress can't get their hands on that money. So basically, the interviewer was asking former President Trump, look, we only have so much discretionary funding, and that funding is not enough to bring down our national debt. But, would you be open to cuts when it comes to Social Security and Medicare? And former President Trump, like I said, I'll play the video and you guys can hear for yourself. President Trump said, yeah, we can do cuts. We can do, cuts on other things. We can really look at when it comes to mismanaging funds and things like that. So he went away from saying cuts, and then he moved into that realm where you start talking about, fraudulent funding and things like that. And the reason why he went to that is because, true politician, he's going to a topic that everyone can agree with. Of course, we don't want wasteful spending when it comes to any agency. And so he quickly pivots to that, but he did say cuts. He answered the question because the interviewer's question was, look, we have to get this money from somewhere. And Social Security and Medicare, they're sitting on a nest egg of money. Maybe we should change the rules so we'll be able to access some of that money. Maybe bring all of the money so we no longer have non-discretionary funding. Bring that money into everything, bring it into all discretionary funding, and then let Congress spend the money how they see fit or what they think is most important. So I thought that was very interesting, but he did respond, and I'm going to show you the response. Okay. Now his response, interestingly enough, his response is different than what was in the interview. So I'll show you that response. And then I want to talk a little bit about the polls, because right now, looking at the polls, and we're going to look at the polls every week just to see how they evolve over time. But right now, when it comes to the polls, former President Trump is leading in most of the polls that I've looked at. Now, these are very slim margins, but nonetheless, he's leading. It's very hard when you're looking at polls this early on, this early or this far out. We need to see more. We need to hear more of the plans for the future, that kind of stuff. We haven't really heard much of that, so we'll have to see how that comes in the future. But yeah, right now, former President Trump, he's leading in the polls, and we'll show you guys that. Okay, so let me go to the chat here. And you know what? Let me do one thing before I get going here, because it always bothers me when I'm looking at um, when I'm looking at the chat. I don't always get everything that I'm looking for on the chat. Let me. What I need to do is, since we're live now, go into the live feed, and then it'll be a little bit better for me. The chat. Oh, all right. That's and that way, if I have anything that I need to change, because I've had people come on here before, and I wanted to put them on a timeout and things like that. So if you guys come in here, just be courteous. Don't go after each other, call each other names, stuff like that, and make sure your language is appropriate. If it's not, then I will put you on a timeout, 5-minute timeout. If you continue to do it, then I will have to remove you from the live stream. So just letting you guys know that. We're all adults here, so hopefully we won't have any issues. Generally, we don't. I think there was only one person in the last stream that was saying some pretty inappropriate things to people, so I had to put them on a timeout. Okay, so we talked about that. So those are the two stories. Those are the only two stories that I want to talk about today. So I want your input too, because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, good Lord. I mean, where do we even start? So we have the Fani Willis situation. That case, we're going to find out tomorrow what's going on with that case. So that's something that I'm really watching. I might actually go live tomorrow too. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, let me get all my stuff out of the way. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I probably, if I'm at home when they put this information out, I will go live and we'll talk about it. Okay. And so that's one story. So will this Georgia case actually move forward, or will the judge say Fani Willis is no longer able to try the case? Okay? And if they say that she's not able to try the case, then that case is going to have to go to another county, most likely. But I think there's a committee that would have to get together and figure out where to send it and how they're going to send it. So that's just going to take more time, and there's no guarantee that other county that it goes to would try the case. So the case could just go away. So that's one thing that we're hearing about right now. And then also, what was I watching earlier? I was watching this stuff with Boeing. I don't know if you guys have been watching this, but being that I love to travel and I like to get out there and fly on these planes, we've seen in the last month that Boeing they've been having some problems with their planes. Alaska Airlines had a situation. United just had a situation where one of the wheels fell off the plane. Luckily, it landed. It landed fine. And that's one of the things that always, I don't know, for whatever reason, there's so much that can happen when you're flying. But one of the things I always think about, what if one of the wheels fell off? And so that actually happened. Now, they usually have multiple wheels, it's not just one wheel. So they have, even on I don't know if it was the back or the front, but they have, two wheels side by side. So if one fell off, technically you still have another one to keep the plane from, I don't know, going flat, I guess. I don't know the right terminology when it comes to planes, but Boeing is going through some real serious negative press. because there's a lot of things that are going on with those planes. Not only are there a lot of things going on with the planes, but now I've seen some of these documentaries on Boeing, and now they're really looking into the practice. How are they building the planes, and are they favoring profits over um, safety and things like that. So all of that stuff is coming out, which I think is really, really interesting because there are only really two major manufacturers of planes. You have Airbus and you have Boeing, and Boeing has dominated for years. And now Airbus, I mean Airbus, they have some pretty nice planes out there now. And like I said, I fly a lot, so I always look at that whenever I'm flying. I always look to see what plane I'm going to be flying on. When I'm booking my tickets, I'm looking at the planes because it makes a huge difference depending on what planes you fly on, and especially if you're flying and when possible. And I use points to do this. Okay, so I'm not using cash, but when possible, I like to fly business class. And there's a whole different experience if you're flying business class on an Airbus 320 or 321, or even they're talking right now about the Boeing 737, the Max. You're flying on a Max business class. It's a whole different experience compared to a Boeing 787, a Dreamliner, or a 777. It's a whole different business class. And so in the business class on those larger planes, the 787, 777, they're live flat seats, and it's just a real nice experience. Whereas you're flying on a smaller jet like the 320, the Airbus 320 or the 321, it's a smaller plane. It's just going to be the regular seats. It's not. I mean, it's the regular seat, but it's a little more extended. But it's not going to lie flat and all that. The food tends to be better on the larger planes as well. And like an A330 is not Boeing, is Airbus. That's their version. Well, I won't say their version, but that's a larger plane for them. And so if you're flying business class, you're going to get a better experience. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but anyway, looking at Boeing, they're going through some stuff, and I want to start doing more research on this because I might actually do a video in the future, because this could turn out to be a situation. And they just had this on TMZ. I don't know if you guys watch TMZ, but on TMZ, one of the former employees was speaking out against Boeing, and I don't know if there was a hearing that he was going to be going to or something, but he ends up um, found dead. And it was, I can't say the word on YouTube because they don't like when you say that word, but let's just say it was self-inflicted. That's what the reports are showing, or initial. That's what the initial reports are showing. But now, people are trying to get into, maybe this was a conspiracy. Maybe this was something. They're getting into this whole situation with Boeing and the negative press, and this former employee speaking out against Boeing. Could that have something to do with this this situation with the gentleman that passed away? So, all right, okay, all right. You guys have let me know where you're coming from. Let me open this up real quick, and we'll do some more. We'll take a look at the chat. Let's see. My question is, all the time is middle class poor. So get all this up here. Yeah, okay. My question is, why is all the time it is middle class and poor and Social Security people have to lose their money and not the ones that can afford to cut? Okay, so I get what the gist of what you're saying there, Jessica, and thank you for your question there. It seems that way, right? I mean, it always seems like the wealthy. And I just did a video talking about Ben Shapiro, and you know what, I'm going to show there's more to that story, because if you didn't know, Ben Shapiro is a political commentator, and he's a conservative political commentator, and he was talking about Social Security. He was talking about retirement, and he was like, I don't know why people don't need to retire. It's in his words, it's stupid. Why should you retire? You should work until till you die, basically. And so that caught a lot of I won't say it caught a lot of people by surprise, but a lot of people were very upset with the fact that he said that. And so then he did a response video to his video. And, but I think this whole thing and what we have to start realizing when it comes to just social media, people want to go viral. And he went viral by saying that. Now, I don't know if he truly believes that, but he definitely went viral by saying that. And so now everyone's talking about it. I did a video on it. Everyone else is doing videos on it. And now I'm still talking about it on live stream. So the effect that he wanted, I guess he got it because people are talking about it. But the issue that I have is he has a huge following. He's got over 6 million subscribers on YouTube. And he puts his, he puts his information out to different platforms, not just YouTube. And so what I don't like about it is the fact that he's just talking about this and some people are listening and some people might actually agree with what he's saying. Obviously, he's got a huge following, so some of those people are going to agree with what he's saying. And his whole thing was like, we don't need Social Security. Social Security is people should be working. They shouldn't be receiving Social Security anyway. Okay, and that's I'm giving you guys kind of the he didn't say those exact words, let's get rid of Social Security, but he was skirting around that issue of we shouldn't be raising taxes on people. We shouldn't be doing any of that stuff. When it comes to Social Security, people should be working anyway. They don't need Social Security. They shouldn't be retiring when they're 65, which retirement age now is 67, but he, for whatever reason, didn't know that, and he just continued to talk about people shouldn't be retiring. So, yeah, it does seem that way. Middle class, working class, poor. These are the people that are carrying the brunt of this. And I think when it comes down to it, the wealthy, yes, they have the money to pay these politicians and get in these politicians' ear. We don't really have those. We don't have the resources to pay for even if it was a $200 dinner with your congressperson. A lot of us, we can't afford to do that. And so you can't get that. And I'm saying $200, that's cheap. A lot of them are very much more expensive. $1,000 dinner, $2,000 dinner where you can sit down and then you'll have an opportunity to talk to your congressperson, that kind of stuff. But we don't all have those same resources financially to talk to them. But we can get out and go to town halls and things like that and try to talk to them there or just write them a letter. And I know I just say just write them a letter, but that goes a long way. If enough people are writing letters, we're seeing the situation right now on TikTok, right? With TikTok, I should say, where Congress already moved a bill. They already passed this TikTok ban. And so we're seeing how fast Congress moves. And the main reason they started moving is because they were getting an influx of young people calling and saying, don't ban TikTok, don't ban TikTok. And that's why they started looking at this. And it's like, oh, because this has actually had the opposite effect, but we have a problem here. We have all these kids that are using TikTok, and really, the issue here and the issues that we're looking at when it comes to TikTok is because it's a company that's owned by because it's not a U.S. company and it's in another country, our laws don't apply to ByteDance. Okay, this is the company ByteDance. And because that company's in China, our laws don't apply to what they do with their information. And so the fear is, can that information get out of ByteDance's hands into foreign governments? And will they be able to use that information to find out more information about us? So intel, right? It would be just like if we had, and there are a lot of things, companies that we have in the U.S. that are not allowed. They're not allowed to have that. How can I say this? Getting all tongue tied. We have companies, social media, that are not used in other countries because of that very same thing. They're owned by the US, and because they're owned by the US, I mean, we have laws against being able to access, like, government being able to access Facebook or government being able to access Google and things like that. But even still, these other countries won't allow the people in their country to use those platforms because potentially we could get intel from them. So, all right, let's see. Let's move forward. I talk way too much, but I enjoy talking to you guys. That's why I'm here. Carrie says, "Hello, David. I love watching your program. Thank you very much, Carrie. I appreciate that." And Barbara says, "Trump said at one time he would tap the big oil reserves." Okay, so, and that's something that he has said in the past, right? But how do you do that? That's my question. Like, anytime someone brings up things, like a politician brings up things, how are you going to do that? What is your plan? Because there's no plan with that. Yes, former President Trump has said, we have money. We have money. We can fix the problem because we have money. Okay, that's fine. How are you going to fix the problem? How are you going to use money from oil reserves to fix the problem? Because that's not how it works. The money that's going into Social Security is coming from the payroll contribution. Okay, payroll contribution 6.2%. So if you're working right now, you're paying 6.2%. Your employer's matching that 6.2%. That's part of the money that goes to Social Security Administration so they can pay out benefits. And then we have a trust fund of about 2.7 trillion. It's probably down to like 2.5 trillion by now, but it's slowly depleting. So you have money coming from the payroll contribution. That's 6.2% from you, 6.2% from your employer. So that's 12.4%. That goes to the Social Security Administration. And then whatever they need, so they're going to need a little bit more. So let's say that that's about 77% of what's needed to pay out current benefits. Okay. Then they're going to pull the rest of that money from the trust fund. And they're going to continue pulling from that trust fund until that trust fund is depleted. And they're saying that it will deplete in about 10 years, just based on how much they have to pull every month to pay out benefits. And I think every year we spend about 1.4 trillion in Social Security benefits. So all of that money is in one place. Okay. And that money can't be touched by Congress. So what's the plan when it comes to oil? Okay. Let's say, all right, we have oil reserves. Let's start drilling for oil. Now we're selling oil to other countries. We as a government aren't drilling for oil. Okay. There are companies that actually drill for the oil. Okay. So private companies is what I'm saying. And so how does that help Social Security? There would have to be a proposal, a bill that goes through and says, okay, this percentage of oil that you're drilling, this, whatever your proceeds are, will have to go to Social Security. So it's not just as simple as, okay, let's just start drilling for oil. We actually have to have a plan in order to have that money go to Social Security and only go to Social Security. But that hasn't, no one has talked about that. And even former President Trump hasn't told us how that would work. Okay. So just because you have an idea doesn't mean that it's going to work, especially when it comes to a president. And I've talked about this plenty of times. When it comes to presidents, they have very limited power, believe it or not. They can't get things done that you think. I mean, they could talk about things forever and ever, but just because they're talking about it doesn't mean it's going to get done. We heard former President Trump talking about build the wall, right? That was every campaign stop he went to back in 2015, 2016. He was talking about building the wall, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall. Mexico's paying for it. Mexico's paying for it. Did we build a wall? We built some, but we ran out of money. We didn't have the money. Let me turn my phone off here. We didn't have the money because the money has to come from Congress. So the president doesn't have the power. He might say, yes, I want to do this, or I want to do that, but he has to have the money in order to do that. So he has to have Congress buy in on whatever he is or whatever he wants to do. Okay. But so that in itself, just having the oil reserves, basically, Barbara, just to go full circle here, just having oil to drill is not going to fix Social Security unless they put something on paper and get it passed in the House and passed in the Senate and signed off by the president. Bottom line, that's what we're looking at there. Okay, let's see. David, what's going on, David? Coming in from Missouri. Thank you for being here. Rod, polls are starting to flip in Biden's favor. So I've seen some of the latest polls, and right now, I truly believe that the polls aren't there. We're not going to get a good poll right now. It's going to be further down the road, maybe June, July. Then we'll start seeing some really good polls come out. But right now, it's kind of hard. You know, it's still there's too much up in the air right now. We're too far away from the election. People aren't really dialed into the election yet, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, so Bill is saying that's funny to vote for someone who is going to cut Social Security, not me. Okay, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Like I said, we're gonna get into that in a second. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, all right. I want to get Raymond here. I caught this one. I hate politics. You know, a lot of people say the same thing. Now, me personally, I actually love politics. I don't know, and I'm not talking about specific political party. I'm just saying, in general, I love the process. I've always loved it. I majored in political science. I was involved in politics, not running, but helping out candidates and stuff. And I was a campaign manager. This was, and I'm getting old. This was 20 years ago, about 22 years ago. I was a campaign manager in a race out in California. It was a assemblywoman was running. And so I've been involved. I've always been interested in that whole process. Now, I get it. I understand why people don't like politics, because you got a lot of how can I say this? You have some shady people that are involved in politics, and even the ones that aren't shady are, we'll say, shifty, where they'll say one thing, do something else, or they'll just say something just because they know it will be favorable to their growth. They'll be able to move higher if they just say certain things, that kind of stuff. So it's very hard. I remember I'm not going to put the congressperson's name out there. She's no longer a congressperson, but I went to it was a function. It wasn't even a town hall. It was just kind of like a meet and greet thing. And I'd watch her on TV all the time. She wasn't even I wasn't even in her district, but I just wanted to go just to kind of see, because, like I said, I've been always involved in politics. So this was years ago. This is probably, this is like 30 years ago. So I went to this function, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we go in there, and it was like kind of you had little snacks and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we go. So she's coming around the room. She's talking to people, and she comes to me, and she, comes and says something to me and shakes my hand. I'm like, hey, just a little small talk. But I just remember leaving that situation feeling like, wow, that was a really uncomfortable, like, encounter. It was very uncomfortable. It was like it was forced. Like she was, I don't know. It felt weird. It felt very, very fake. And I just remember leaving there thinking like, it just felt really, really weird. But I've met other politicians and they've been fine, but that situation just felt so weird. And I'll never forget it. It's 30 years later and I'm still talking about it, because it was just a weird feeling. Okay, so let's go ahead. I want to start off. Now, I told you guys, let's see, did I even put that video up here? I think I put it up. Oh, I did. Here we go. Okay, so I told you guys I want to talk a little bit about what former President Trump said about cutting Social Security. I'm going to let you guys hear it, okay? And then we'll talk a little bit about it. And you guys let me know what you heard. And then I'm going to show you guys his response, because he responded. I think he actually responded. This was earlier today that he responded just about this situation. So let me play the video first, and I actually need to. Well, I can just play it from the beginning, and let me kind of walk you through before we start watching it. The interviewer is going to ask him a question about Social Security and Medicare, discretionary spending, non-discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is the money that Congress has where they can spend it on whatever they want. Non-discretionary spending, that's something that Congress can't touch, okay? So that's the money that's going to Social Security and Medicare. Now, this interviewer, when he's asking Trump the question, and you can kind of see how the interviewer is like, what are we going to do about this? We got money. Social Security has money, but we can't access that money. And we have discretionary spending, but discretionary spending is not enough to bring down our national debt. That's at about $34 trillion. So what are we going to do? Are you open to cuts for Social Security? What are we going to do in order to do this? Because what they're saying is if we cut some from Social Security, then we can take that non-discretionary fund money and then help pay down the debt. And understand this, and I want to get this out of the way, or get this clear. Social Security and Medicare, they do not add to our national debt. Okay, they do not add to our national debt. So the $34 trillion that you hear people talking about, that is not coming from Social Security and Medicare. It's very important for us to keep saying this, because I hear lawmakers time and time again, they might not directly say it, but they will always put them in the same sentence. We have Social Security. Social Security is, they're bringing in, or they're spending $1.4 trillion on Social Security, and our national debt is at $33 trillion or $34 trillion. They'll put it in the same sentence. So if someone's just listening to that, they're going to automatically think, okay, well, wow, we're spending $1.4 trillion in Social Security, and our national debt's at $34 trillion. So Social Security is probably one of the problems. That's the reason why our national debt is going up. But it's not. It's not at all. Because that money, and I just did a video a couple days ago, that money is funneled from the payroll contribution and the trust fund. It has nothing to do with our national debt. You know why our national debt keeps rising? Because of the discretionary spending, because of defense spending, because of the not just defense spending, but the money that Congress is spending. That is why our national debt is going up. It has nothing to do with Social Security and Medicare. And I want to get that out. I want to get that out there because like I said, you hear politicians. I hear this all the time. Politicians will always put them in the same sentence. And sometimes, they know. And this is the saddest part about it. This is one of the reasons why I know people hate politics because of this, and this really frustrates me as well. But the fact that I love politics, I like to debunk a lot of the stuff that these politicians are putting out there, this fake information. But yes, they will use them in the same sentence. So you'll come to the conclusion, well, if we're spending $1.4 trillion, because this is what they'll do. They say we're spending $1.4 trillion on Social Security. Even the defense spending last year was only, well, I say only, I shouldn't say only, it was $800 and something billion. So $800 something billion for defense spending, $1.4 trillion for Social Security. And then when you look at it, people are thinking, well, wow, we need to at least bring down Social Security a little bit. If it's $1.4 trillion, we're spending more than our defense spending. But it's designed to be paid off through the payroll contribution, like I said. So that's the difference. Whereas you have discretionary spending and non-discretionary. I just want to get that out of the way. Now, I don't want to keep going on that. But, okay, let me play this video, and I'm just going to play the first part. I will cut it off, okay, because former President Trump, if you guys want to watch the complete video, check out the video that I posted a couple of days ago talking about this, and it says something about President Trump's plan for Social Security. So that title, if you see that, and click on that video, and you can watch it, the full video. I'm going to cut it off because he goes off into all kind of other stuff. Okay, he was asked about Social Security. He went into the pandemic. He went into not getting credit for the whole COVID situation and how he handled it. He went into all this different stuff that has nothing to do with Social Security, but he had to make a pivot because he didn't have anything else to really talk about when it came to Social Security. And so that's why, I shouldn't speak like I know what he's thinking, but he just briefly answered, the question when it came to Social Security, and then he went off on some other stuff. Okay, let me play it real quick, and then we'll come back. Here we go.
One thing that I think that at least the perception is that there's not a whole lot of difference between what you think we should do with entitlements or non-discretionary spending and what President Biden is proposing. It's almost the third rail of politics. And we've got a $34 trillion total debt built up, and very little we can do in terms of cutting spending. Discretionary is not going to help. Have you changed your outlook on how to handle entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Mr. President? It seems like something has to be done, or else we're going to be stuck at 120% of debt to GDP forever.
So first of all, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements, tremendous bad management of entitlements. There's tremendous amounts of things and numbers of things you can do. So I don't, necessarily agree with the statement. I know that they're going to end up weakening Social Security because the country is weak. I mean, take a look at outside of the stock market, what we're going through hell. People are going through hell. They have, and I believe the number is 50%. They say 32 and 33%. I believe.
Okay, so now he goes off into the economy and all this stuff. I don't know exactly what he was saying when he's talking about. They're gonna, they, and I guess he's talking about Congress. I don't know who the they is, but they're going to weaken Social Security because the country's weak. I don't know exactly what he's talking about there. The only thing that I can think of, and by the way, guys, hit the like button. Got what, 48 likes? Come on now. Hit the like button, get the likes up. The more likes, the YouTube will promote it out to more people. So if you guys can do me that favor, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so I don't know exactly where he was going with they're going to have to weaken Social Security because the country is weak. I don't know what that means. If you got in the chat, let me know what you guys think. But it really doesn't make sense, that whole statement there. I could see it if he was saying if our economy is weak, our economy as a whole is weak, which right now, believe it or not, even though things are very expensive, and I will agree with you, and you go to the grocery store, things are expensive, our economy is doing well. I mean, businesses are doing well. Record profits are coming through. They're hiring people. Unemployment rate right now is down. It's very low. We're looking at inflation. Unfortunately, we're looking at inflation starting to uptick a little bit, which is not good. I mean, it dropped down to, I think, as low as 3%, went up to 3.1%. Now it's up to 3.2% overall. And so that's starting to increase, which is not a good thing. But our economy as a whole is doing pretty good. Okay, so if you want a job, you're going to be able to find a job. It's just we need to get this inflation under control, and it's a balancing act, because when things are inflated, and I mean basically things are inflated because people are spending. Okay, and so if you're spending, the easiest way to say is, let's say I'm a business owner and I own a little let's say I own a little snack bar. I'm trying to think real small. Let's say I own a little snack bar and I sell nachos. I remember when I was a kid and that was like my favorite thing. We go play Little League baseball, and then after the game we go get nachos. So at the little snack bar. So let's say I run a little snack bar and people are coming in and they're buying my nachos. And so I'm selling them for like $5 for the nachos. And then more and more people, the demand starts to increase and more people want these nachos. And so I said, you know what? This is great. Let me raise the price a little bit. So I raised the price a little bit from $5 to $5.50, from $5.50 to $6, from $6 to $6.50 to $7 to $8 to $9. People are still buying. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. So I'm doing well. And I'm raising those prices. And as I'm raising the prices, that's inflation. Okay. And people are still buying. And as long as they're still buying, I'm going to keep raising the prices. But guess what? If I hit $10 and they say, wow, I'm not buying that $10 for nachos. I'm not going to pay $10 for nachos. Then guess what? Now I'm going to have to start dropping my prices again because people aren't buying anymore. And so I'll have the cheese and the nachos and they're getting, it's getting old and I have to get rid of it. So that's the situation that we're in right now. Prices start going up. So it's a balancing act. And that's what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. They're trying to balance this. And eventually, what they're going to do, hopefully, is start cutting interest rates again. And that will, because right now, the economy's hot. So if you were to cut interest rates right now, the economy is going to get even hotter, meaning people are going to spend even more money. And if you spend even more money, then inflation is going to just jump right back up there. So there's always that fear. And it's always going to be that balancing act. But nonetheless, he went off into that. I can see if he was saying when it comes to Social Security, if the economy is doing bad, then Social Security will take a hit. And that is true. Not necessarily cuts, but it would hurt Social Security in the sense that if you don't have a lot of people in the workforce, which we do, we have a lot of people. Just like I said, unemployment rate is very low right now. So if you have people in the workforce, guess what? Those people are paying into the payroll contribution. If you have more money coming into the payroll contribution, you have more employers matching that 6.2%, and all that money, that 12.4% is going over to the Social Security Administration. So it's good. You have a strong workforce. If you have a weak workforce, if we're looking at a recession, you have less people in the workforce, less people working, that is going to impact the amount of money that you can collect in the contributions that go to Social Security. And so if he's saying that, then I can understand it. I don't know if he was really going there. I don't know. I just, like I said, when it comes to former President Trump, a lot of times he says things that they don't make sense. You have to kind of read between the lines. And that's what's really, that's a good politician. They're going to put stuff out there that might sound okay or sound good, but you don't really know where they're coming from. And so if he wants to pivot away from it, he can pivot away from it. And so we we looked at that. Let me open this up here. I want to show you guys his response. I thought that was pretty interesting, his response here. If we can pull up everything here. And then we'll go into the chat. I want to see what you guys are saying when it comes to this. So if you have questions, put them in the chat now, and we'll take a look at them. All right. Go ahead and right over to, there we go. All right. So this is an article by Politico. It says Trump tries to clean up his Social Security comments. And let me go down to the bottom here because I just wanted to pull it out so you guys can see exactly what he's saying here. Oh, let's move it up a little bit. Okay, he says, now he has said this before, right? He says that I will never do anything that will jeopardize or hurt Social Security or Medicare. Okay, he just said this today. All right. And it says Trump told the site, we'll have to do it elsewhere. So we'll have to do it elsewhere, but we're not going to do anything to hurt them. Okay. So that was his response. So you guys could, let me know what you guys think about that. Do you believe him now? Did you believe him when he answered the question on CNBC? Now, he has said in the past that he would never cut Social Security, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why he would even say that on CNBC. And I think what kind of might have gotten him a little, uh, I don't, irritated, I guess, is because, and the interviewer, rightfully so, was saying that President Biden has said he's not going to cut Social Security. You're saying that you're not going to cut Social Security. You guys are kind of saying the same thing. Is that true? Is that, and comparing him to Biden, maybe he got a little upset with that. He said, I don't like the premise of your question or something. I think he mentioned that. So maybe that's where he was trying to go. And that's why he said what he was saying, to try to show that he was different than what how President Biden feels about Social Security. But still, I have yet to hear a concrete plan from former President Trump when it comes to moving forward with Social Security reform. I will also say that President Biden has not given a concrete, I will say, let's put it this way. In the past, President Biden has said that he supports a $200 raise for Social Security. Okay. He has said that, but I don't see him adamantly trying to get that legislation passed. Okay. He's not out there. And I'll give you a good example. And he said the $200 raise for Social Security. So Senator Bernie Sanders' plan, I guess, is what he was talking about there. That's the only proposal that has that. He's also he's also shown, President Biden has also shown support for the Social Security 2100 Act. There would be a raise for that, but it's not going to be a $200 raise. It would be less. And it would depend on how much money you're receiving in Social Security. But so he said that he supports those proposals, but he's not out there really promoting the fact that he supports it and trying to, get Congress to move something forward. Because when it comes down to it, in the Senate right now, the Senate is being run by Democrats. Schumer's the leader of the Senate. So Schumer can bring whatever he wants to the floor. Okay. So if President Biden went to Schumer and said, look, we need a proposal. You need you to bring a proposal for Social Security reform. We need you to bring that to the floor and hold a vote. Even if it doesn't pass, let's hold a vote. We'll see where people are when it comes to this. Now, I think, is it, Angus King? I can't remember Senator Whitehouse has a proposal. I believe it's Senator Whitehouse. I'm not even sure. I have to look it up. But there's a proposal that the Senate has that's very similar to the Social Security 2100 Act. So Representative Larson's plan, they have a similar version in the Senate. And so I don't see President Biden out there saying, look, let's move this legislation through the Senate. It's not going to pass the House. But I can guarantee you, if you pass it in the Senate, it will put some pressure on the House to come up with something. They can't just not address it at all. It would be one of those things where you pass this in the Senate, you move it to the House, and now the House is going to have to say, okay, we're going to need to make some amendments and then make some changes to either that proposal or put another proposal out there and vote on that. So I just don't see that movement coming from President Biden. And a good example of this is this whole TikTok situation. Okay, going back to the TikTok situation. So Congress gets an influx of calls from young people saying, look, don't ban TikTok. And now they look at it and say, this is, we got to really take a look at this, because they've been kind of going back and forth on this for years. Former President Trump tried to ban TikTok, okay, and it didn't work because he can't do it through executive order. And that's another, like I'm saying, when it comes to presidents, they have very limited power. And so former President Trump tried to do it. It didn't go anywhere. Then they had the hearings and they held just a hearing. About a year ago, they held a hearing, and we thought that they were going to do something at that time. They didn't do anything. You even had President Biden putting a TikTok together so he could kind of reach out to the younger audience. But when it came down to it, at the very end of all of this, just a couple of days ago, guess who was the Biden administration was working with the House. So the Speaker of the House working with the House to try to put together this proposal to vote on when it came to TikTok, banning TikTok. So that's the support that we need to see in Social Security, okay, Social Security reform. We need to see the White House saying, okay, yes, let's get together. And like I said, in the House, it's going to be very, very hard because you're going to have, Mike Johnson is not going to bring it to the floor, but Schumer could bring it to the floor in the Senate. And then if they pass it in the Senate, that could put some pressure on Mike Johnson. That's the only real way to move forward when it comes to Social Security reform, at least right now. Okay. And so I showed you guys that. And then what we're I wanted to kind of talk a little bit. Let's see. I want to see what you guys are saying, actually. And then we'll talk a little bit more about it. But bottom line here is former President Trump says he's open to cuts. And then he kind of, backpedaled from that and says he would never cut Social Security. So what do you believe? Do you believe him a couple of days ago? Or do you believe him now? And to be fair, President Biden, got to go back about 40 years. 40 years ago, said that he was in favor of. I think at the time they were talking about sunsetting programs. Okay, so what they're talking about when it comes to sunsetting programs is every 5 years or usually it's like every 5 years. Every 5 years, they would revisit the programs to see if they were working properly. And if they weren't, then they would make some changes. That's what sunsetting means. But the danger when it comes to sunsetting is if you're really looking into these programs, you might say, oh, you know what, we can cut here, we can cut there, and you start making cuts to the program. So that's why it's dangerous if they're saying sunset, because what would happen is all these government shutdowns that we're seeing right now, that's because the budget it sunsets every year, right? Every fiscal year. And so that's why the threats are coming into the 11th hour, government shutdown, all that stuff. Now, just think if they did that with government programs, if they did that with Social Security, if they did that with Medicare, then guess what's going to happen? Every 5 years, it's going to come to the 11th hour. They're going to try to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? And if you have legislators that want to make cuts to Social Security, they can make cuts to Social Security because now they have more leverage, because they know if they don't come up with the plan for the next 5 years, then everything's going to be on hold. Everything will be pretty much shut down when it comes to payments going out and all that. So in the past, 40 years ago, yes, President Biden did say that he was open to having Social Security and Medicare sunset after a certain period of time. Okay, so that was back then. Now, of course, he's changed his tune on that. And so, politicians do change their tune on things. But if someone is saying something, that they're okay with cuts, and then 2 days later they're saying they're not okay with cuts, that's a quick change, right? As opposed to 40 years ago you said something and now you've changed your tune 40 years later. Or I won't even say 40 years later, because he's changed his tune years ago. Okay. All right. So, and let me know if you guys are seeing me and everything. I get these little warnings telling me that things are, I don't know, bandwidth is slow or whatever. So just let me know if you can see me and hear me and all that. Okay. So I want to see what you guys are saying here. Okay. Rod, let me open this up here. Need to get this. There we go. So going to a different topic there. Boeing cutting corners. Yeah, something's going on with Boeing. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I should have played that later because I want to talk about it, but I want to get into the Trump stuff first. Okay, so Alpha Dog is saying, what's happening with the 2100 Act? Is it dead in the water? Bernie Sanders, Sherrod Brown from Ohio. Okay, so yeah, right now, everything is on hold. Like I said, I kind of just went over this whole thing when it comes to what needs to happen. If they're going to pass any Social Security reform, it's going to have to go through it. And I shouldn't say any Social Security reform because they could pass Social Security reform in the House, but it's probably not going to be very favorable to people who are currently receiving benefits. It will probably be raising the full retirement age and potentially making some cuts to Social Security. Even raising the full retirement age in itself is a cut to Social Security. For every year that you raise the full retirement age, that's a 7% cut. So the House could pass something, but it's not going to be favorable for people receiving benefits. At least I haven't heard anything yet. The only thing that I've heard is raise the full retirement age, have some type of a, portion of your payroll contribution would go to a private, you'd be able to invest it privately, that kind of stuff. That's not going to help people who are currently receiving benefits. Okay. All right, guys, let me know what you're thinking here. Uh-oh. That's my place. Okay, Lewis is saying the people need a president that will help the poor people with more money and food benefits. The food is going up so much. People don't get a lot of food if the government doesn't give food stamps. Okay. And let's see, Barbara. Let's see. Wait. Oh, you guys are talking to each other. I get confused sometimes. What does it say? It's never made it to the House floor speaker. Okay, yeah. So you're just saying what I said there. All right. So you guys are doing a lot of talking back and forth, and that's good. I like the engagement. All right. So, and then just getting back to kind of the food prices and everything is going up. Yes, that's true. But what I will say, just because when we're talking about a president, and it's so unfortunate that the way we look at things, we look at the president as the end all be all. President has very little power, first off, and the president doesn't control the economy. Okay, and that's and you'll have presidents that will they will take credit for a good economy, but the reality is it's not them. It simply isn't. It's not them. They get, you get lucky. Sometimes sometimes it's just luck, and you come in a good situation where the economy is good, and you ride that wave. And sometimes it doesn't work in your favor. Sometimes it goes the other way. So just voting for a president based on the economy is, in my opinion, you need to do a little bit more digging. You need to find out how they feel about the issues and everything. And why is the economy doing well? That's another thing you need to look at, because there could be certain situations, and and I kind of look at it a few different ways. First off, the president doesn't have that much power when it comes to the economy, but then I also look at it as, if the economy is good when you come in, did you really do anything to help the economy? You know what I mean? Like, did you just get lucky when you were elected? And I'll give you an example. Okay, former President Trump came in, the economy was good when he came in. It was a good economy, and he was able to ride that good economy until pandemic, and then our economy changed in the pandemic. And I think we would all agree that things really changed when it came to our economy at that time. And that's when we started to see the downtick. And then who comes in? President Biden. guess what? You come in, the economy's not good when he came in because things were still shut down. And we were at a spending level, at our spending level. We were at a spending stage because we were receiving stimulus checks. You had the PPP funding going out for businesses. You had a lot of people who were unemployed at that time. Okay, so that really impacted Social Security benefits at the time because you had less money being collected for the payroll contribution. And so there were a lot of different things that were going on. And that's when President Biden came in, right? And like I said, presidents don't really have control over the economy that way. They can't really make changes. They can't just say, okay, we're going to do this. And the only thing they can really do is they can open up the oil reserves and stuff like that when it comes to gas prices when they really start spiking. But when it comes to inflation overall, there's not much that they can do. They just have to, the Federal Reserve can, try to do their magic and bring it down. But if you're coming in a bad economy, you're coming in a bad economy. Now, the mistake that I think President Biden made is President Biden started saying, oh, Bidenomics, when the economy started doing better. But the economy was doing better, but not for everyone. Not everyone is feeling it. And as I stated, you go to the grocery store, you're not feeling it when you go to the grocery store. When I go to let's say I go to a fast food place to get something to eat, I'm looking at prices and I'm thinking, wow, a couple of years ago, those prices were a lot less than what they are now. They just keep going up. Or when you go to a restaurant, the same thing. I remember like we all, my family, we always go to a restaurant for birthdays and stuff like that. And you just think over the years, how much things cost, like for a family of 5. And it's like, wow, this is crazy. It's gone from $80 to $100 to now it's like $150 on average just to go, 5 people go into a restaurant to eat. So it's really, people aren't feeling it yet. And hopefully we will start feeling some of those the prices going down, but it hasn't hit us yet. But sometimes presidents just get lucky. They come in, the economy's good. Same thing, President Obama, when he came in, the economy was bad, really bad. Okay. And then fortunately we were able to come out of that. And, I'm not looking at President Obama and saying, yes, he did all of that and brought our economy from the brink. But, it's going to go up and down. Our economy is going to go up and down. And I think Congress has a much better role or plays a much bigger role when it comes to our economy because they have money. And so if our economy is doing bad, guess what? They can stimulate our economy. And so they can pass legislation that stimulates our economy and gets our economy back on track. So that's one thing that they can do. But the president doesn't have a say in that. Congress has to actually pass these things and get them to the president so he can sign it. So, yeah. All right, let's see. Too many employees in the government. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but you gotta. We have to really look at that whole thing because okay, you say too many employees in the government. So what are we going to do? Are we going to fire all these employees? Because if we fire all these employees, guess what's going to happen to our economy? Our economy is going to tank because these employees, they have houses, they go to the supermarket, they buy, other items, so you're just saying, if we have too many employees, sure, there's always, and agencies should be doing this anyways. They should be looking at their workforce and how many people they have and streamlining where they can. But, it's a very tricky thing because you will have lawmakers that will get out there and say, yes, we need to cut all these agencies. We need to cut them in half. The IRS, for whatever reason, you have people that are against the IRS. And so let's cut all these jobs. They shouldn't have these jobs and all this. But the reality is, who's really going to suffer? We're going to all suffer. If they cut, when it comes to Social Security, if the Social Security Administration, I'm talking about the administration, I'm not talking about the benefits, but let's say they start cutting people who are working at Social Security, the Social Security office. And guess what? When you call, you're probably going to be waiting longer than 30 minutes. You're going to be waiting an hour just to get someone to answer the phone. Or if you have a claim, Social Security disability claim, you're going to be waiting even longer to get them to review those claims because they have less people that are working. Okay, so I think in a lot of situations, it's very hard to hire people when it comes to government jobs. It's hard to hire people and or replace people. It's very hard because you're waiting for the budget. And I'll just tell you, when it comes to, because I work for local government, I work for county government, and we were always short staffed, always. The whole time that I worked there, 21 years, we were always short staffed. We didn't have enough people working. And there were certain things that we needed we needed people working certain areas. And, you know, it was, and the reason I'm saying this is it was by law, we had to have a certain number of people working in different shifts and things like that. And so we would be getting mandated. So we'd have to get mandated to work. And so you couldn't, basically, you work a shift. And I'll just tell this quick story, then we'll go back to the topics. But you work a shift, and this was back when I first started. So I didn't have much seniority, so I couldn't. You can't say no. You get mandated to work, you have to work. And so just think of this, and this happened to me on Christmas, around that time, but it would happen to me frequently, you know, throughout the year. I work an 8-hour shift, and an hour before my shift was over, and at this time I was working in probation, but I wasn't a probation officer, so I was working in the institutions. When you work in the institutions, you have to have a certain amount of people in those institutions to supervise the people who are, you know, in there. And so, and that's by law. So we would get mandated. And so I work an 8-hour shift. An hour before my shift's up, I get a phone call, and they're telling me, we're mandating you to work another 8 hours. I can't say no. You have to do it. It's a mandate. And so, so that would happen. And I remember Christmas. I'll never forget this. I picked up overtime, 3 overtime shifts right before Christmas because I didn't want to get mandated to work on Christmas. Okay. And so, or actually, I was working on Christmas, but I didn't want to get mandated to work the whole day. And so I picked up the 3 shifts. I worked the 3 back-to-back shifts, which is 16 hours. Okay, so I worked a 16-hour shift. I had 8 hours before I had to come back. Then I worked another 16-hour shift, 8 hours, and this is legal, even though it's just crazy that they allow this. So I worked 16 hours, 8 hours in between, 16 hours, 8 hours in between, 16 hours, 8 hours in between, and then I came in on Christmas morning, hoping that I would only have to work the 8 hours for Christmas morning, you know, or not Christmas morning, but we worked, I think at the time we were working like a 6 to 2, like a straight 8. So I'd work that 8 hours. I was hoping, okay, well, I'll work this 8 hours and then I won't get mandated to work that night. But guess what? It was Christmas. Everybody's calling in sick on Christmas. And so I'm already there. And so guess what? I get mandated. So now I work 4 16-hour shifts back to back. Man, I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. And I left that and probably slept for 2 days after that. It was crazy. And then actually, I think my boss found out about it because my boss didn't know, because you don't really know exactly, you know, like my boss was not working on Christmas, but I was there. My boss found out about it and she was like, "Oh, this is crazy. I can't believe you had to do this. I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah." And all that. But the only reason that I had to do it, in what I should have done, is just not worked on Christmas, because I worked that Christmas morning. If I didn't work that Christmas morning, then even if they called me to mandate me, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't get the message. But if I'm there, they know I'm there, and they can call and say, "Hey, you need to work," and you have to work. So anyway, yeah, when it comes to government jobs, it's very hard to get people to work for government, and then as well as, you know, retaining those people. It's not as easy as you think. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to go to the next story here, and we're just going to look at the polls real quick, and then you guys are going to let me know what you guys what else you guys want me to talk about. Um, let's see. You guys keep asking about stimulus checks. Yeah, I say this every time. It's not going to happen. It really isn't. And that's unfortunate, but I mean, the reason why we saw stimulus checks is because we needed to stimulate the economy. We don't need to stimulate the economy right now. And I just talked about this earlier when it comes to our economy is pretty strong right now. And we're even seeing inflation start to uptick. And that's not good. I think I even have a illustration I can show you guys here. Yeah, let's go to that real quick here. Want to show you. I didn't do the inflation numbers. I normally do them, so I guess I'll just do it on the live stream here. I normally do them, but there were some other stories that I wanted to cover, so that's the reason why I didn't go over this with you guys. But I like to go over the food when it comes to the consumer price index. Just go over the food because we all need to eat, and so that's why I like to talk about that, because that's something mandatory that we need food, we need shelter, stuff like that. There's certain things, like especially when it comes to gas and stuff. Well, I won't say not all of us we can make different decisions when it comes to the use of gas. So if gasoline prices are up, there's alternative ways that we can travel places. We can just not travel especially if you're retired and you don't have to go places. You can kind of control that a little bit better. But anyway, overall, we saw 3.2%. Okay, so the consumer price index. So if you guys don't know, every month they put out the consumer price index, and what that is showing us is the inflation month to month and then year over year. So when we're looking at month to month, in January, all items went up 0.3%. Then in February, it went up 0.4%. So we're seeing it increase. Okay, and that's not what we want to see. I think I have a graph here that I can show you guys. It'll explain this a little bit better here. So just looking at this graph here, when we see this right here, that's not what we want to see. So from October until now, October of last year until now, you see this spike going up. We don't want to see that spike. Let me see you guys see the whole thing. Yeah. We want to see that go back down, right? We want to see it coming down like this. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see this uptick. Month to month, it keeps going up and up and up. And they look at core inflation here. Core inflation's at 3.8, and then our overall inflation's at 3.2. Core inflation, they're taking out energy and food. Okay, so and this right here is what the economists are really looking at. They're not looking at this, but the average Joe, us, we look at that. We look at this. I want to know what all items are. I want to know food and energy. I want that included in the calculation. Okay, so let's go back here. I just want to show you food at home and some of these other categories really quickly, and then we'll get to the next topic. But so food, we're looking at 0.4% here, and then in February, we didn't see any movement. Okay, it didn't go up, it didn't go down. So I guess technically that's good, right? Overall, it went up, but when we're looking at overall, inflation went up. When we're looking at food, we saw no change. Okay, so that's just food overall. Now, food at home, 0.4%, and then no change. Okay, so the hope is that, and we had the CEO of Walmart, he indicated this. He said this again just a couple of weeks ago, if not last week. He said that they plan to bring down prices of grocery items. So we'll see that in the very near future, and that will have a domino. I won't say hopefully, that will have a domino effect if the CEO of Walmart, the largest grocery chain in the world, if they start dropping their prices on food, all the other competitors are going to do the same because they have to in order to compete. So we'll have to see. So maybe by summer we'll see cheaper prices at the grocery store. And then food away from home was 0.5, and then 0.1. That's month to month. So that has, that's shown some. It's dropped a little bit, so that's good. And then we're looking at year over years, 4.5%. And then I didn't say here, year over year for food at home is 1. And then food away from home is 1%. And then food at home is 2.2%. And then you just have some of the other categories here. And believe it or not, looking at gas of all types, we're looking year to date. So year over year is minus 3.9. So minus 3.9 is good. That means it's down 3% or almost 4% from the price of gas last year. Okay. The other items, that's pretty good. So shelter here, shelter is good to look at. Month to month. So from January to February. So January it was 0.6%, February 0.4%, overall 5.7%. Okay. And this is important. Okay. It's important because what was COLA for Social Security beneficiaries in 2024? What is COLA? COLA was what, 3.2%? So when we're looking at this number here, this means a lot because it's saying, well, shelter, this time last year, the change from last year to this year is 5.7% increase. But you only got a 3.2% increase in your COLA. Okay, so now you see how that makes sense? When you start looking at these numbers, you start realizing, okay, well, this is why I'm still struggling, because shelter is up higher than the cost of living adjustment that I received. So my dollar isn't going as far as it should. So if we saw a COLA increase of 5.7%, then you would be even. Your money would be just as strong as it was last year. But now it's not as strong because of this. Okay. And when you look at some of the other categories as well. So overall 3.2%. So you're looking at overall all items being considered, 3.2%. Your COLA was 3.2%. So you're breaking even there. And then some of the other items, like food, if we're looking at from year to date, for the most part, food overall. What am I looking at? Get this off. Okay, yeah, food at home is 1.0. So your purchasing power is a little stronger than the cost of food. Okay, now that's all items. So some items might be more expensive than others, but overall, you should be doing a little bit better at the grocery store than you did last year. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Okay. All right. So we talked about that. All right, guys. Now I want to know what you guys want to talk about. And we'll go through some of this stuff here. I think Senator Larson. So it's Representative Larson. Jamie, let's see. Let me put this out here. So yes, Jamie, it's Representative Larson. And I say that to say because there's a difference. So you have representatives in the House and you have the senators. Okay. Representative Larson's plan is the best one so far. I would agree. I think Representative Larson has a very good plan. The only problem with his plan is we talked about sunsets earlier, but his plan, he has expiration dates. So his plan is not once it's implemented, it's not forever. It's something that he'll have to put dates on it. So maybe it'll be 3 years out. And The trick is, though, to get the plan going. If you can get the plan going, then it's going to be very hard to pull it away. It's kind of like the Affordable Care Act. If you can get the Affordable Care Act implemented, it's going to be hard to pull that away once you get it implemented, because people are going to be, they're going to start receiving the benefits. And once they start receiving the benefits, they're not going to want to lose those benefits. And politicians are going to be very apprehensive about taking those benefits away. So that's what they tried to do with the child tax credit, but it didn't work, unfortunately. And I thought, if anything, that would work, because that was, what was a child tax credit? It was $300, depending on how old your child was, between $350 and $300 that you were receiving every month per child. And they did that for 6 months, and then they tried to renew it, but they couldn't get support to renew it, and they haven't been able to get support to renew. They're talking about it right now because they have to renew. I think by 2025, they have to renew the child tax credit that is currently. So you have two child tax credits. You had the one that former President Trump put in place, and that was a $2,000 credit, but it wasn't advanced to you early. And then what President Biden did is he improved on the child tax credit and advanced it to you early, so you would receive those $300 checks or the $350 checks every month for that 6 months. And then that one expired. So President Biden's expired. President Trump's will expire in one more year, in 2025. So realistically, they actually have to move forward with something this year when it comes to the child tax credit, or there will be no more child tax credit. Oh, okay. Let's see. You guys have. Okay, DJ saying, what happened to the $200 raise the president promised during his campaign? Yeah, he did promise that, and we don't know what happened. I mean, basically, it's Senator Bernie Sanders' plan, and it hasn't moved forward. It hasn't moved through legislation. And just, I want you guys to understand, when you're listening to, you've heard, I'm sure you guys have heard that the whole story of it's not even a story, but know who has the power to get what you want, to get you what you need, or that kind of stuff. Like, are you talking to a person that can actually get it done, or are you talking to, like, a good example is, I have these people come over to my house all the time wanting to sell me something, get solar on your roof. We can do this, we can do that. What do they say when I answer the door? They say, "Hey, how you doing? Are you the homeowner?" Why are they asking me if I'm the homeowner? Because I would make the decisions, right? And so that's why they're asking me that, because if I'm renting the house, then they're talking to the wrong person. So you just need to know when you're listening to politicians, know what they can and can't do. And it's very simple. When it comes to a president, just think of it this way. They can't do much. Okay? They can't do much. So if they're saying, and what presidents will say a lot, in President Biden, when he said, talked about the $200 raise for Social Security, he said that I support a $200 raise for Social Security. And so you just need to know what they can and can't do. Presidents can do very little. Just think about this. When it comes to laws, when it comes to legislation, the presidents can't do any of that. So if they're saying they want to do things, like we just saw the State of the Union address, there was a lot of stuff in the State of the Union address that the president was saying that he has no power to do. Okay? He has to get it through Congress. Congress has the power to do it, but he alone cannot do it. Okay? Or he can't do it at all. He has to wait for Congress to do it and then send it to his desk, and then he can sign off on it. That's how it works. And so just understand it that way. So when you hear presidents say stuff, people running for president, they're saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. There's very little that presidents can do. Presidents can send military troops out to a conflict, but presidents don't declare war. So the Congress would have to declare war. But presidents can do things temporarily. Yeah, it's very important to know the distinction between temporary and permanent. Congress can do things permanent because they have the money. The presidents don't have the money. Okay, all of this talk about the border right now, and well, the president could just shut down the border. The president does temporarily, yes, the president can shut down the border, but guess what? There has to be a good reason to shut down the border. Because if not, then it's just going to get tied up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to come down and say, no, the president doesn't have the power just to shut down the border anytime that they want. There has to be something significant. And that's why we saw when former President Trump was able to, Title 42, when they were able to shut the border down, a lot of that had to do with the pandemic. That's a good reason why we can't. We're locking down our border because we're locking down pretty much the country as a whole. So there has to be a real good reason, even if you have people, because understand this, and I know I'm going off topic into immigration, but people have the right. This is written in our laws, okay? So Congress would have to change this. People have the right to seek asylum. And if they get to the U.S. and they claim asylum, then they get their day in court. Bottom line. That is in our laws. The only way, and the president can't change that, the only way that changes is if Congress changes the law. That's it. Bottom line. And so that's why the Senate was trying to put this bill together. You had a bipartisan bill that they wanted to pass. And in that bipartisan bill, it gave the president some powers that the president doesn't currently have. And it gave the president power to say, okay, if we reach a certain number of people seeking asylum, then we can shut the border down. But it has to come, you have to have a law to do that. You have to have a law that backs that up. The president himself doesn't have that power just to say, okay, I'm just going to shut the border down. And then when it comes to what do they say? The whole stay in Mexico provision. I can't remember the exact name of it, but that's something that you have to get Mexico to agree with, right? So if you have a president in Mexico that's saying, no, we're not going to keep asylum seekers here. So if that president's saying that, then you don't have the power to force that president to have those people that are seeking asylum stay in Mexico. So there's more to it. Okay, it's not just, oh, well, yeah, the president's just not doing anything. And I will agree that the president did drop the ball on the seriousness of the situation, but we've gotten to a point now where we could at least address some of the issues now, but now we have lawmakers that they're doing a 180. They're saying it's a problem, and now they're saying, well, we don't want to do anything. We can't do anything about it now. It's an election year. We're not going to, we're going to run on this. We're going to run on the fact that it's chaotic, but we're not going to do anything about it. And that's what I have a problem with, because if you say it's a problem, if you say fentanyl's a problem, if you say all these drugs that are coming over is a problem, you say people seeking asylum is a problem, you're saying that, our border is completely open and we don't have the funding, we don't have the money, and you're saying all of this stuff, and then you have a proposal that was brought forward in the Senate, and now you're saying, no, that's not good enough. It's actually, in my opinion, it's a good start. It does something. It brings money. It brings more power, giving the president more power to do things when it comes to the border. It brings some of those things, and now you're against it, or that's probably why people don't like politicians and don't like politics, because it's a lot of just this kind of stuff, right? You have people that say something, and then you try to offer a solution, help, and then now it's like, okay, we're not going to do anything because we need this. We're running on this. All right, guys. Let me go through some of these questions here and see if you guys have any other stuff you want to talk about. Let's see. Okay, Howard. So commenting on DJ, okay, Biden never promised that. He did say that he supports a proposal to increase benefits. Okay, and that's an important distinction, right? If you're saying you support something, yes, you're saying basically that you would like Congress to put something on paper and you would sign off on it. It's the same situation. I know I keep going back to TikTok, but it's the same situation with TikTok. The president supports the ban on TikTok, and the president has indicated, and presidents do this all the time, okay? They will always say, like, if it's something that they're trying to move through Congress, you're going to have a president that, a president will say, you know what? If it gets to my desk, I'll sign it. You've heard that before. All presidents say this. If it gets to my desk, I'll sign it. And that's a cue to get it to my desk and I'll sign it. So he's showing support for that proposal. Okay. All right. Destin, is it Destin? Says, when Trump talks about cuts, he's speaking in terms of wasteful spending regarding personnel. I guess you're saying personnel, right? Not our benefits. So he said both. If you listen to it, and you can watch the video again, because and understand too what the interviewer was asking. The interviewer was asking basically, or really not even asking, making a statement saying, look, discretionary spending's not enough. We need some of this non-discretionary money. That's basically what he was saying. And so former President Trump says, yeah, I can't remember his exact words, but he said cuts first, and then he said, and, we have some wasteful spending and, that kind of stuff. And he went into that. But even that wouldn't be enough because, well, let me just put it this way. That doesn't even make sense because discretionary spending, guess what? Discretionary spending goes into the Social Security Administration for staffing. That's where discretionary spending plays a role. When it comes to benefits is only through the non-discretionary spending. So every year they put a budget together. Part of that budget, the budget that they're working on right now, the one that they passed, half of it. Now they have to, on the 22nd, we're looking at another government shutdown, which is, well, that's next week. Next week, we're looking at another government shutdown if they don't move forward with legislation. That is discretionary spending that they're talking about. They're talking about funding for the different government agencies. And so those are separate banks. And so that's why, and the interviewer that was asking the question, and I can't remember his name, but the interviewer that was asking the question was saying, look, discretionary spending is not enough. And so if he's saying that, then why would Trump say, well, discretionary, we could cut the wasteful spending in the agency, because the wasteful spending in the agency would be discretionary spending. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. All right, guys. And so, you know what? I started this earlier. Started at 5:15. I usually start at 7 o'clock. I'll probably go until about 7 o'clock and then leave. But then you'll have to call. We've been out for over an hour, almost 2 hours. But it looks like you guys are better with 5:15, and you can let me know in the comments. Say 5:15 or 7 o'clock. So put 5:15 if you like 5:15, 7 o'clock if you like 7 o'clock. But I think I'll stick with this time if you guys are good with that. Okay, so yeah, so in my opinion, Destin, is it Destin? Yeah, I don't know if I buy that. I think he is talking about. I think he just slipped up. He said cuts, and then that's why he backpedaled and said, because if that's the case, when he was being interviewed, the quote that I showed you coming from him, he would have said, no, I didn't say cuts. I actually said cutting this. He would have said what he meant cuts for. But that's the thing. I really don't like reading into the, I like to listen to what they say and go off what they say and not try to interpret, well, what they meant was this and what they meant was that, because it was clear when the question was asked and he answered, what are we going to do about Social Security? knowing what the question is, he responded cuts. He didn't say, no, yeah, we're only going to cut the wasteful spending. And he didn't give us any details when it came to wasteful spending. What is wasteful spending? Where do you see the areas where there's wasteful spending? He didn't go into that. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to read some more questions and then we will call it for the night. But I do appreciate you guys all being here. 450 agencies, yeah, worthless. Okay. So I'm going to try, if you put at TEC, then I'll know that it's a question that you want me to look at, answer, or it's a comment that you're making. Because some of these, I know you guys are going back and forth, and it's kind of weird. I jump in and I'm answering a question that you guys are asking maybe to someone else. If that makes sense. Okay. All right. I'm looking for questions. I don't see any questions. Go down to the very bottom here. Okay, Sam is saying, I hate social check if privatized Social Security is it taxable. Well, I don't think we'll ever see that, but what is it? It's private Social Security, when it be taxable. Okay, so yeah, you asked the question. Okay, so that's not something that I can't see them passing something like that. It would be impossible. You can't privatize Social Security. We're in a system now. It just wouldn't work. So I just don't see that being even something to think about. So if it got to that point, then we can talk about it further. If there's a proposal out there's no proposal out there at all. Kamika, what happened to Miss Apple? You know, it's crazy. I don't know. And it's really sad because, you know, I talked to her offline, you know, on emails. And then when we had the WhatsApp group, we chatted a few times. And she was a real big help for the channel. And I enjoyed having her. And she would always get in there and tell me so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that. And, you know, and she was one of the moderators on the channel. So she had some power to take care of some things and help me out. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened to her. It was just like one day I was talking to her, and then the next day I wasn't. And I reached out to her a couple times and didn't get a response. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened with her. I know she was going through she had some health issues, but I never like got into that with her. But she did kind of mention it to me just in talking. So I don't know. But it's sad, you know, it's one of those deals where, yeah, especially when and I used to tell her all the time, I appreciate you helping me. I appreciate you helping me, because you don't know. You guys don't realize how much she was doing to help me. She was going through like my comments, going through all of my comments and letting me know, especially YouTube's gotten a lot better now, but there was a time where things were really bad, where I was getting a lot of spam. Like people were creating these fake YouTube profiles and saying, hey, join my, stock, whatever. They were scamming people basically and trying to get people to go over to their WhatsApp and put in this information. It was really, really bad for a while. And she would just get in there all the time and find those and then tell me, hey, there's one here, there's one there, or there was some, like adult content links that people were putting in the comments and all that. And she would read through all of my comments and help me out with that all the time, because it's hard for me to put out videos and then do this and to do that and be looking at all the comments. I try to read comments, but I can't read them all. And so she was doing a lot of help for me. And so just, situations like this, I don't know what happened to her, but always tell people you appreciate them. Always do that, because you never know, what their situation is. You never know if you'll ever talk to them again. So, and I'll put it this way: we didn't leave on bad. Like, she didn't stop, supporting me and just like cut me off because she was upset with me or anything like that. It was nothing like that. We never had any like falling out or anything. Okay. All right. Let's see. I work in the private industry. You work. You know what I want to show you guys? I'm gonna end with this. We got one more video to show you, because this did get me. It got me irritated, and it was the Ben Shapiro thing. But it was a Ben Shapiro thing, and I did a video on it. But then there was another channel, Breaking Points. They did a video on it, and I actually liked their take on it. And they were kind of saying the same thing that I was saying. So I want to show you guys their clip, and then we'll talk about it. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll do a side by side. That way I can talk while it's on. But I think they did a good job. So let me kind of set it up as I'm getting this set up. So Ben Shapiro is a political commentator, and he is a very conservative commentator, a very popular, got over 6 million subscribers on YouTube. He has other platforms that he posts his videos on, and he talks about conservative topics, right? And he started talking about Social Security for whatever. Actually, you know what? He was responding to the State of the Union address. So the State of the Union address, and it wasn't just the State of the Union address. It was the budget. The president put out his budget. Okay, so he put out his budget for 2025. And so generally what happens is the president will put out a budget, and that's just kind of a wish. I won't say kind of. It is a wish list. It's a wish list of what he would like to see for 2025 when it comes to the budget. So he's going to put defense spending for all the different agencies and all that stuff. I think there was a little increase for the Social Security Administration. Okay, now this is discretionary funding. This is not Social Security reform. And so that's what Ben Shapiro was talking about. He was talking about the funding, the budget. And so then he gets into the whole Social Security thing, and then he just goes off on Social Security and retirement as a whole. And I think it's stupid that people, want to retire. And why would people need to retire at 65? And retirement age is not 65. It's actually 67 if you want to get your full retirement benefits. But for whatever reason, he didn't know that. And he said 65 is too young to retire and this and that. And, my parents are 66 or 67 or 67 and 68. And they're still working, and I don't think people should retire unless they have some type of a medical issue. They shouldn't retire at all. They should just continue working. And so that caught a lot of people, I won't say by surprise, but a lot of people got upset with that. And rightfully so, because, here's this guy, he's 40 years old, he's multimillionaire, and he's saying, look, why do you need to retire? You should be working. This is crazy. And he's sitting in front of a camera like I am right now, doing a job that I'm going to tell you is not very hard because I do it on a daily basis, right? Not to the level that he's doing it because he's got more, but he's got a crew that works. This is just me. He's got a crew that works with him. He sits in front of the camera, but he's got people doing his edits. He's got people doing all of his stuff. Okay, so there's a difference there. I do everything on my own. But nonetheless, he's talking about this, but he's not thinking about the fact that you have people that are, that are working some very demanding jobs, demanding on your body, sitting in front of a camera, sitting in front, sitting in a chair, talking to someone in front of a camera in a nice, cozy, air conditioned room is a lot different than being out there in the 100-degree temperature on a pole trying to fix the power lines or doing construction in the hot weather, or all these other jobs that you could think of. Commercial fishermen that are out there, you know, doing stuff to bring food to us, right? Doing these hard jobs to build structures for us, to clean structures, window wipers, all these people doing these really demanding jobs, truck drivers driving hours and hours without sleep just so we can get the products that we desire. Pilots. I mean, there's just so many jobs that are very crucial and that you can't do you can't do for in your 70s and 80s. Most people won't be able to do those jobs. They're demanding on your body. Law enforcement. I could tell you, I did it for 21 years. It's hard on your body. Walking around carrying an extra 40 pounds of gear on you all day. It does numbers to your back. It's crazy how bad it is. And so, and then let alone you're wearing 40 extra pounds, and then if something goes down, now you're running with 40 extra pounds on you. It's just not normal. It just isn't. And so, I mean, it's not normal for your body. You can't do that year after year after year after year. Firefighters, same thing. There's a lot of jobs that are out there that are very, very demanding. So it's just so sad that you have people out there that think like he thinks. Like, what's the problem? We don't need Social Security. You should be working anyway. It's just, I mean, it's so sad that you have people that are so narrow-minded that they just think, you know what? I'm doing it. Why can't you? When you have people doing jobs that he couldn't even do. He's 40 and he couldn't even do a lot of the jobs that some of these people are doing. Okay, I mean, it's just it's ridiculous. But anyway, I want to play this and we'll kind of talk about it as we watch it. But I thought they had a very good take on this whole situation, so that's why I want to play it. Now, Ben Shapiro, just so you know, I did a video on Ben Shapiro, his initial video, and then he came back with another video the day after talking about, I guess everybody was upset about, what I was saying, all this stuff, and kind of going into that. I think when it comes to like Ben Shapiro, he's just doing this because he knows it's going to get people fired up and it's going to make him viral. And that's what he wants. You make him viral, he pulls in more revenue, he pulls in more of an audience because people want to hear what he has to say next, and that kind of stuff. So I think it was a big ploy. I don't know. I just can't see people thinking this way. I just can't. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that someone would think like this. So I just can't see him being serious about this. I'm sure his parents sat him down. I don't know. I'm just saying stuff. His parents need to sit him down and say, look, because he says his parents 67, 68. They need to tell him, look, your body will change as you age. And he should know this. Everyone knows this. But when you're 40, your body is the same. And I would say, even at that, when I got to 40, I started seeing changes. My body didn't recover the same way that it recovered when I was in my 30s and I was in my 20s. I played football up until I was, 22? And my body would recover really fast. Have a game one day, usually rest, have a game on Saturday, rest on Sunday, and by Monday, I'm fine. As I started getting older, that recovery time, it took more time for me to recover. And, it just kept, and so now it's yeah, it takes a lot of time. So if I do something, really strenuous stuff, it takes longer for my body to recover. And so as he ages, his body's going to take longer for him to recover. I don't know what he's doing now, but I'm just saying if he's doing anything that's strenuous, it's going to take him time. And so you can imagine as you get older, you get into your 60s and into your 70s, yes, your body's not going to recover the same way that it did when you were younger. All right, let's play this clip. Here we go.
Our man Ben Shapiro, as he says in this clip we're about to play, he blew up the internet by being a little twerp, suggesting that old people need to work longer, and also coming after Social Security, which comes after Donald Trump, very stupidly, in my opinion, just pragmatically from a political perspective, suggested that actually, yes, he told CNBC, yes, there are ways that we can cut Social Security and Medicare, which is CNBC has been slobbering for those cuts. And the thing that people liked about Trump was that he was willing to tell CNBC, no, you owe that to people. You're not taking it away from them. So Ben Shapiro jumps in and sees an opportunity to go back to this old conservative canard of we're going to do this. We're finally going to come for these entitlements. Let's play a little bit of our man Ben Shapiro.
So yesterday, I apparently blew up the internet. I blew up the internet because of something that I said on this show. What exactly did I say that blew up the internet? Well, I touched the political third rail. I talked about Social Security. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's so spicy about Social Security? And I will admit, I was thinking the same thing because there are a few simple facts of the matter with regard to Social Security. One, we don't have the money for it, and it's a Ponzi scheme. And two,
wow. See, this is the way he feels about it. Now, have you heard that before? It's a Ponzi scheme. Yes, I've heard lawmakers say that it's a Ponzi scheme. Okay, what's God, I can't remember the guy's name offhand, but senator, he said it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. And then you've had plenty. You've had Senator Scott from Florida say it's a Ponzi scheme. You've had some other lawmakers that are saying it's a Ponzi scheme. And why do they say that? They say that because if you can make it, and it's first off, it's not a Ponzi scheme. Okay, it's been, and I think they talk about it. It's been, they've been paying out for 81 years. Ponzi schemes don't pay out. Okay, Ponzi schemes, the guy on the top gets all the money, and then everybody else is left holding the bag. That's the way a Ponzi scheme would work. But this is working. It's paying out. It continues to pay out. Now, the trust fund, yes, the trust fund is going through some issues, but that's because of our changing work dynamics. And when our work dynamics change, then we need to change with them. Okay, we haven't reformed Social Security since 1983. So if you haven't reformed something since 1983, you're going to have to make some changes in order to keep it going. Right? It's just like if you're driving a car, you can't just keep driving a car without getting it tuned up, making some changes to your vehicle. You don't make any changes, you just keep driving it. Eventually, it's going to die on you. Even if it's a great car, very reliable, it's still going to die on you if you don't keep it up. And we've just failed to keep up Social Security. We've just left it on its own, and it needs to be reformed. So it's not a Ponzi scheme, but you'll hear lawmakers say this. You'll hear commentators say this because they want to do away with it. If they can convince the American people that it's a Ponzi scheme, that it's a scam, then guess what? The American people will say, hey, let's get rid of it. And then all those contributions that people have been paying in for their whole life, it's going to go bye-bye. Okay, and that's the fear. And so that's when you have people who are just, I don't want to say what I'm thinking, but when you have people like this that are putting out information that is false, just so, one, for clout, one, so they can go viral, and then two, because they want the program to be done away with anyway. So let's make it the boogeyman.
Regard to sort of the personal decision to retire, very often when people retire, they're making a bad decision. And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years, and he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. It was an attempt to get older workers off the payrolls to make room for younger workers. The first kind of full Social Security scheme was put in place by Otto von Bismarck in Germany, and was a way of clearing the older payrolls of older workers because they weren't as effective. And in fact, older workers fought it.
All right, there's a lot going on there, Ryan.
Yeah, and first of all, he could just have Googled Social Security retirement age. It's 67. They bumped it up.
That's correct.
It's not 65. That's just a weird mistake in there. Secondly, and I think we can put we have this next
the community note
element up here. Good community note. One of the reasons that you have such low life expectancy from back in the day is infant mortality.
That's exactly right.
You go back and look at during the time of the founding of the country, life expectancy is like 40 or something insane.
And you're like, what?
How's
People
that
only
possible?
live till 40?
And then you're like, wait a minute, but Ben Franklin was like 80 years old when he's signing that. How is this possible? And it turns out that when you read further, like they had 10 children, only 5 lived past the age of 3 or 4, and you're like, oh, I see. So the average is a mess. Now, if you make it into adulthood, then your life expectancy at the time was, close to 69. Basically, it hasn't risen much, and actually, life expectancy over the last couple of years is dipping back downwards. So, he should actually adjust his talking points.
Let me add on to something.
Yeah, and that's very important. That's very important to note because not only Ben Shapiro is saying this, but you have lawmakers saying the exact same thing. Well, the life expectancy is increasing, so we should, it should match the full retirement age. We should raise the full retirement age because people are living longer. Nikki Haley was saying this every speech that she did, talked about Social Security. She said the same exact thing. She also had her numbers wrong. She was talking about 65 is the full retirement age. 65 is not the full retirement age. And you saw the correction there. It's 67. Okay, so if you're born 1960 or after 1960, you can't retire until you're 67. If you're born before then, yes, you can retire at 66, but it's like 66 and a half, and they have the different increments of that. But when it comes to lawmakers, I just lost my train of thought. So when it comes to lawmakers just talking about Social Security, when it comes to them talking about the full retirement age and all that, you hear that a lot. You hear the same thing that Ben Shapiro is saying when it comes to the life expectancy. Oh, people are living longer, but in actuality, life expectancy is not. It's at best it's stagnant. It's not going up. It's stagnant, and in some cases it might even be going down a little bit. So that's something that and how would we? Or I won't say how. Why would we use that as a barometer when we know that the life expectancy can go up and down? We're just assuming that the life expectancy was going to continue to rise. Well, what if it doesn't? And what if we are in the situation that we are right now where it's stagnant or it's going down a little bit? But you create a law that says, okay, well, the life expectancy is increasing, so we're just going to raise the full retirement age. Once you raise the full retirement age up, then what are you going to do? You're going to drop it back down when the life expectancy goes down? So it doesn't make any sense.
Like that, often people will say that's because of COVID. That is absolutely not true. We've done multiple monologues here on the subject. It has been ticking down since 2017, and unfortunately, it's actually fentanyl.
It's
one
overdoses.
Of the major reasons.
Because you're losing 100,000 people plus a year
you have
at the age of 20 or 21.
Exactly. So you have fentanyl being the number one cause of, or overdose being the number one cause of death for people who are, 20 to 55 prime aged working years. On top of, you have horrible chronic health conditions and obesity. So you put that all together, our society is on like a Soviet-esque decline.
But separately, let's talk about the lack of any imagination in the mind of Ben Shapiro. I think it is true that there are people who get their meaning through their routine of going to work and coming home, then the weekend,
Yes.
and then they retire and they're lost. Like I think he's.
It's probably more true for people like us, right?
Even people who work manual jobs.
No,
their
I'm
entire
saying
lives,
though that's
like,
kind of an important distinction, and that kind of gets me to the superhero element.
But the answer to that is not to say, well, don't ever stop that routine and drive yourself until you are in the grave. It is, well, what's wrong with all of this? Like, let's find more spiritual value, and spiritual doesn't have to be religious at all. Let's just find more meaning in our daily lives, in our social relations, in the way that we not just work but also play, and the way that we kind of love each other as a community, as a family, et cetera. Like, let's have better lives our entire lives.
One of the reasons why I think retirement age is retirement, Social Security, and all that is so imperative is that we have a huge manual labor underclass in this country, of which their body literally gets broken down.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the poverty statistics from the 1930s, it is horrifying. I know that in Annie and all of those, it's like it kind of popularizes this image that it was working age people who were in Hoovervilles, and that is certainly true to some extent. But a lot of the people who were starving to death and dying, they were just old.
Yes.
They were pensioners. I mean that they went broke, their bank were gone, and these people, guys, they died of literal starvation because they were so poor and they could not go or even qualify under this. And then finally, there's a basic aspect of fairness. I've been paying in this damn program my entire life. Every time I look at my paycheck, I remember the very first time I got paid.
What is that?
And I said, what the is this FICA shit, you know? And then I was like, oh, it's Social Security. I'm like, okay, but that's part of the thing is that every American who works in this country, we have paid into this system, fairly or not. You can say reform, et cetera. I'm like, no. You took a hell of a lot of my money over the years, not even close to what I'm going to get back out of it. At the very least, I'm going to get something. So the idea that it's going to get abolished is completely outrageous.
And the idea that it's a Ponzi scheme is also just factually incorrect. Like, ask Ben Shapiro, name another Ponzi scheme that hasn't missed a payment in 81 years. Like, it's a sustainable program.
Right.
And and you know how I can say that? We have sustained it for 81 years. We can continue to sustain it. If you need to make some tweaks and Ben Shapiro has to pay a little bit more into it to help some other people, fine. That's different. But to your point, there is still a word kind of in our vernacular that comes from the period before Social Security, and the word is the poorhouse.
Yes, that's right.
You would hear it from your parents or your grandparents. You're going to put me in the poorhouse. The poorhouse was an actual thing, and it.
That's funny that he says that, because my parents used to always say that, and that's so far from, like, I didn't know what that. I mean, I knew kind of what they were saying, but I didn't really think of it as a real thing. You know, I just thought of it as it's just a saying. You know.
Was basically a charitable run organization. Sometimes it would get a little bit of money from the town or from the city or the state, where when elderly people who could no longer make income, they would just get put in the poorhouse. These were the most decrepit, disgusting, degrading, undignified places that you could put elderly people. And the other place, and I interviewed Dingell about this, whose father was the author of the Social Security Act. He said when he was a kid, his house was filled with Dingells and other Polish relatives. What would happen is everybody would just move into a house that had a little bit of room. That was it. You had the poor house, and you had elderly people moving in with whatever cousins, nephews, nieces, or grandchildren, or anybody else that could take them in. If that's how you want to do it, like if you want to have a multi-generational home where you know the people the mom and the dad are supporting the children and the grandparents, go ahead. You should do that if you want to do it. Everybody was forced to do it. Social Security is around the world the greatest poverty reduction program that has ever existed in human history.
Let me talk specifically to that. 40.2% of people who are older and eligible for Social Security, their only income is Social Security.
Those people were headed to the poorhouse.
Yeah, they'd be dead. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to die.
Poorhouse.
Like, they literally going to die without Social Security and Medicare. Now, I want to be clear. That's not a good situation. And if you are my age or, you know, your age, Ryan, please save for retirement. Please. I'm begging you, because you don't want to be in this position. That said, 40% of the country is. So clearly we're screwing up, and we've done a hell of a lot wrong in terms of setting and financially educating people. But it is what it is. What are you going to let these people just die, you know, in complete in obscurity,
right,
and
and
poverty?
You cut a couple $100 from them just to save Ben Shapiro
like
money
death.
on his taxes. The choices that they then have to make are just brutal.
It's devastating.
And Ben would never have any idea about that type of a choice.
The other thing that they point out is that 40%, but actually more than 50% of people 65 or older receive at least 50% then of their income after age 67 from Social Security. So then now imagine that, as you just said, you know, you cut $100, 5% doesn't sound like a lot to you or I. When the price of eggs goes up by 20, yeah, it actually does make a huge difference. A lot of these people also live by themselves, or, you know, in a sole household. You couple that with a lot of these nursing homes and, you know, the Medicare fraud and all that stuff that goes on. You know, it's not an easy life to be living purely on the government. Again, why I'm begging you, please take some responsibility and try and save for retirement. But if you do find yourself in this situation,
after you've paid for your Breaking Point sub, though.
Yeah, right, of course. I would never advise that. But
yeah, save first.
You don't want to be in this position, and I really hope that nobody is. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But we have to deal with reality. 40, 50% of the country is living in this position. Well, now what? I think we have, you know, look, we have a well-defined program here. And again, all those people, at least, you know, the way the program is designed, they paid into it. We're all paying into it. It would be outrageous to rob us of the similar thing. It also comes to a matter of emphasis, which is what Mike Cernovich kind of put, and I really love this framing. Let's put this up there on the screen. He says, reminder, Ben Shapiro advocated for every war in the Middle East. When the rich kids of D.C. that America can't afford foreign aid and foreign wars, then we can maybe talk about making grandma starve. Until then, no thanks. I totally agree. You want to save money? The Biden administration just put out a defense budget of $842 billion. $842 billion. That would be almost nearly $100 billion increase in what, just 5 years? Yeah. That's a lot of money, right?
That is a lot of money.
That's it seems easy to cut there, isn't it?
And
and you know what's funny about that? $842 billion, that's in his budget. I guarantee you, when that budget, well, I won't say that budget, but when they pass the budget for 2025, because like I said, President Biden puts out his wish list, and then they actually have to pass these appropriations bills and pass a budget for 2025. That's what he's talking about here. $842 billion for defense spending. I guarantee you it will be more than $842 billion. I guarantee you, because President Biden is lowballing it. He's 842, but the reality is, once it gets to Congress and they start looking at things, they're going to say, yeah, we need more, and they're going to it's going to be more than 142 billion, and that's what's crazy. We spend all of this money on national defense spending, and then when we start talking about Social Security, we start talking about some of these other programs. It's like, oh no, we can't provide increases. We can't tax the rich. We can't do this. We can't do that. But we can spend billions of dollars for defense spending, billions of dollars to send to other countries. But when it comes to the U.S., when it comes to programs like Social Security, safety nets that people actually need, then it's like, yeah, we'll we won't make cuts, but we're not going to improve it at all. We're just going to, not talk about it.
If Biden were smart, and he would lean into this, and you are seeing the Biden campaign hitting Trump on this, and you've actually seen the Trump campaign. One of their responses was they tweeted out an article of mine that I wrote in 2020 that said that Joe Biden has been trying to cut Social Security for 40 years.
Yeah,
and it's true, he was, but he is a politician. He saw which way the wind is blowing. There are now about 210 Democrats who have signed on to a Social Security expansion bill in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi kept it off the floor because she is at heart an Austerian and wouldn't. It probably would have passed if she would just put it on the floor. John Larson's bill. That's political gold for Democrats. Say, no, not only
What kind of expansion? What does it do?
it means like on the lower end, 50% and below would get actually more Social Security
benefit
in their checks, and then it closes some of the tax loopholes in order to make and it makes it sustainable for like another 50, 75 years.
Okay, and if you guys don't know, he's talking about the Social Security 2100 Act.
But people like Ben Shapiro would have to pay more in, and so people like Ben Shapiro would rather it be cut, and you just keep working. But he's trying to pretend he's actually doing it for your own good because spiritually and psychically he's just nervous about your soul.
Well, this is crazy. So I didn't even realize this. The average Social Security benefit in 2023 is $1,700 a month.
Right.
I don't even know how you survive on that.
Where are you even going to get? Yeah.
Right.
Like,
can you even pay rent on $1,700?
No,
I mean, I get in a medium to high cost of living area, that's going to be stretching it. That's really tough. You better live in a rural place if you want to make it on food and on housing.
Which then it's hard to get around.
Right.
Yeah, the whole thing is
what a nightmare.
People are screwed.
You can't. There's no way you're gonna make a car payment on $1,700 with all those other things too. That's another thing. Let me just advocate for: buy your house, make sure you pay off your mortgage, and make sure you have retirement.
And it's another. And this is something that doesn't get talked about enough in the squeeze on the economy. So many people our age are helping their parents out.
That's true. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Well, look, as you can see,
you do it because you
we're not talking
about. It's the right thing to do, but it hurt.
These people are not living what is it, high on the hog? Is that they're not living high on the hog here? We're talking about $1,800 for an average check. Let's say a married household, that's still only $3,600. I mean, that's what is that? $3,600. It's like 40 grand or something like that after tax. That's below the average income actually for a household in the United States. So just a reminder, and remember what really this program is, what the implications of all of that would look like. I understand, people don't want to pay or think it's unfair and all of that. And I think there's still a lot we could do in terms of making the Social Security benefits actually go a lot farther and gives people some optionality. But the program itself is 100% gold, and it should stay where it is.
Hey guys, if you like that video.
Okay, so that was Breaking Point. So you want to go over to their channel. They put out some good news. It's news content. Usually they have the gentleman that was talking at the very end there. I would say he's center right, and then they usually have a lady, I can't remember her name, but she's more center left. And so they talk about the different issues that are of the day. But one of the things that I'm going to end with this, when they're talking about just the challenges, and you're talking about people receiving Social Security on average, just like $1,700. I think it's gone up a little bit. I think it's now, because we talk about this a lot, but I think it was 1,800 and something is the average average Social Security benefit. But when we're looking at just setting things like, why aren't people saving? Because that's always the question. Like, why are people saving money? Why are they should just be saving money for retirement, and then they'll be fine. They can get Social Security, could supplement for maybe 40% or less, and then they'll have this nest egg. 401k or retirement, IRA, whatever it is. Why aren't they putting more money in savings? Well, I think one thing is that we like to keep up with the Joneses, or we compete against each other. So if I'm buying a house, I'm competing against other people that are trying to buy that house too. And let's say you have two people, and this is just my thought process. Okay. Now I might be completely wrong. I might be, somewhere in the middle, or I might actually be, right on the nose. But let's say you have two people that are making $100,000 a year. Okay, they're working. They're at their working stage. They're young. Let's say that's not even realistic. 40 years. They're 40 years old. And they're making $100,000 a year. Two people. One person is saving as much as they possibly can for retirement. They have a 401k, they're maxing it out, they're maxing out an IRA, they have their own separate retirement plan, and they're just doing everything that they need to do. They're driving an old vehicle. And then you have another person who is not saving for retirement. They might have a 401k, they're not maxing it out. They don't have an IRA. They're not putting money into, other areas like that. And so you have these two people. one that's not saving, one that is saving. They both have a retirement plan, but one has a much better retirement plan than the other. Okay, and they're both paying into Social Security. Well, these two people are actually competing against each other when it comes to buying a house. So let's say they both want to buy a house. Well, this person that's saving a lot, they don't have as much, expendable cash. They don't have as much money to put into a house. They do have the retirement money, but they don't want to touch the retirement money because that's for their retirement. And this person over here, they have more money to spend on a house because they're not saving as much for their retirement. And so I think it's kind of a domino effect where this person now they can afford the house and they buy the house. This person can't afford the house because they don't have enough money. And so now you have a lot of people that are, and this person right here, they get to the point where they're saving all this retirement, and then they realize, wow, we don't really have money to buy a house. So maybe we're going to have to save less for retirement so we can buy a house, which will actually help in retirement if they can pay the house off before they retire and all that. So you have some people that are not saving for retirement that are outspending the people who are saving for retirement, which kind of could force the people who are saving for retirement to save less for retirement so they can afford to buy a house. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying there. But I think that's going on too. And so in order for us to compete, in order for us to have things, especially in this market, houses are very expensive in some areas. Like California, houses they're out of control. They're very, very expensive. And so in order to compete, you have to say, okay, well, I can't save as much because I need to have that money to buy a house, or I need, if you want to buy a house. And I would agree with what they're saying. Buy a house. Buy a house. People telling you not to own property, that is the wrong strategy. Okay. Yes, when you buy a house, you're going to have expenses that you're going to have to take care of the roof. You're going to have to take care of certain things. I just had workers in my house yesterday fixing something that, a leak that I had. So you're going to have people working and you're going to have to pay them, to do these kind of things. But it will pay off in the long run because you will have property that you own and that you don't have to continue paying a mortgage on, or you're not renting somewhere where you have to continue to pay rent until you die. You could get to a point, hopefully, where you've paid your house off and you no longer have that huge expense. And that's, in most people's budget, that's their largest expense, their house or their shelter. And so buy a house. And then also, when you get to an age where you retire, even if you haven't paid your house off already, you're now in a situation where if you retire, you can move anywhere you want. You don't have to stay where you are now. And in most cases, your house is going to appreciate and you're going to have some equity built up in your house. And if you sell your house, you could sell your house, have cash. So if you're really struggling and you don't, and let's say you're just receiving Social Security benefits, and I'm just throwing numbers out, but let's say you have $300,000. Let's say, if you sell your house, you'll be able to profit $300,000 from doing that. Then you could sell that house and you can move somewhere else and buy a house cash in a cheaper area. Or when I say cheaper, I mean, the housing market is less in those areas. So you have that. You have another option. Now, you don't have to do that, but you at least have an option where if you don't buy a house and you get to that point where you retire, now you don't have that option. And if you're struggling, you don't have really a way out. I know a lot of people, they'll become expats. They'll have a house. They'll sell their house. They'll move to another country. And they'll buy a house and buy a farm and buy all kind of stuff because the U.S. dollar goes a long way. So make sure you at least try to do that if you can. Buy a house. And I've heard people say that before. Oh, you don't need to buy a house. It's just more of a headache. It's just cost money. But if you can afford to buy a house before you retire, please do that. That is something that will benefit you in the long run, and it will give you more options. All right. Okay, I'm going to read a few more comments, and then we're going to go ahead and take off. Let's see. What do we have here? Jessica agrees. And Jessica agrees again. Thank you, Jessica. And you were agreeing to the video, I know. Okay. Barbara says you are correct, David. And what else do we have? Isabella says, thank you so much for the information. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you watching, Isabella. Let's see. Jessica saying, thank you for your information. You give us, I love watching all your videos. I don't watch others, only watch your videos. Thank you very much, Jessica. That means a lot. That means a lot. Because you guys would not believe, like, I have a lot of very good supporters, but then you also have people that are really, really not nice. And so it's always good to get that, the good feedback, because sometimes you don't get that. You get the bad feedback. So it's good to balance it. Okay. And Barbara said, thanks again for sharing all of your knowledge with us and all the research you do on our behalf. Okay. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and take off. I will probably be doing a live stream tomorrow because I want to do that, the whole Fonnie Willis thing, talk a little bit about that. So I'll probably be doing a live stream tomorrow. If not, I will be on next Thursday, 5:15 Pacific Standard Time. I'm changing the time there. I think we did good at 5:15. It's a little bit better for me too. So that's all I have. Thank you guys for stopping by, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.